You can attest to this, Chris. TJ, you've heard me say this off air. So when I'm saying it on air, just because he's listening as I'm about to introduce him, I'm not saying it just because he's on the phone line. How many times have I told the booking staff, Louis Riddick is an anytime guest? Correct?
That's a direct quote. Anytime guest.
An anytime guest. And today is one of those anytimes.
Today is anytime?
It is correct. The Friday before training camp season, baby. In July. The last day of June. The great Louis Riddick from the worldwide leader in sports back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, sir?
Rich, you're too kind, man.
It's true.
You really are.
These are true stories, though. I'm not lying. You are an anytime guest, and I appreciate you coming on. Always.
I appreciate you.
All right, let's chop it up. The team we're not talking about, we should be talking about. Give me the team we're not talking about that we should be talking about. Louis Riddick. What do you got for me?
I know we've talked about this team.
Okay.
But people don't want to buy in. And that's Seattle.
Okay. You have the floor.
People don't want to buy in because, and you know what? I think it's because, well, I know it's primarily because of the division that they're in, and people think that division will ultimately be won by the San Francisco Kyle Shanahans, and that's like the primary reason why. So like everyone goes, well, Kyle's a better coach than everyone. Kyle can do this. Kyle can call up this play. Kyle can do that. Kyle can figure out anything. It's like I get it. Like I love Kyle Shanahan as much as anybody. I do. But when you look at what and here and the second part is because even though San Francisco has as much uncertainty surrounding their quarterback position as any team in the NFL that is considered a Super Bowl contender, any team, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be for them, and we don't know how it's going to work out. People still believe no matter what Geno Smith did last year, it's like, well, it's Geno Smith, though, dude. Like, come on. Anybody, a broken clock can be, right twice a day. Right? I mean, he just got lucky last year. It just worked out for him. They don't believe. John Schneider, like right now, like if you look at the best GMs in the league right now, as far as what they've done over the past 2-3 years in restocking their roster, you have to go with Brett Veach in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go with Howie Roseman in Philadelphia. And John Schneider is right there with what he's done to this roster and how they've revamped it. People thought Pete Carroll was on his way out. Pete forgot about football. Pete rode the backs of Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas and Marshawn, and he didn't do anything. It was just all those guys. People thought that Pete couldn't coach. There's no way he can catch up to, modern-day football. This team has a young offensive line with 2 new stud bookend offensive tackles. They've got speed, versatility at wide receiver. They've got a absolute stable of running backs now with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. On defense, they've got arguably a guy who could have been the defensive rookie of the year last year in Tariq Woolen.
Yep.
They get the best corner in the draft this year in Devin Witherspoon, who we all love. And Rich, I know you've seen him. You know how good he is.
Yep.
Bobby Wagner comes back. Jordan Brooks is a burgeoning star. I mean, they've got players, man.
You didn't even mention the Prez. You didn't even mention the Prez, Jamal Adams.
I didn't even
mention the Prez.
Who's coming back. Look, in that division's wide open. It's right there for them to take this year. It's right there for them to take this year and then go on and really get on a run. The team was a year ahead last year, and I thought last year they were a playoff caliber wild card type of team. When I saw them in the preseason and went out there for training camp, and people said, you need to find a new job because analyzing football isn't the job for you. There's no way Seattle's going to be that good. They'll be a top 5 drafting team. This is their year. It's kind of like Kansas City. Last year wasn't supposed to be Kansas City's year either, which that's a whole different subject. But Seattle is that team. It's that team this year that could surprise everyone in the NFC, period.
And they were a top 5 drafting team with the pick they got for Russell Wilson. And you didn't even mention Jackson Smith-Njigba, who may be he may be the offensive rookie of the year, even with all of the quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round. Period.
No question. I mean, he's, when I said they have like a, versatility at wideout, I mean, in that room, think about the different body types, Rich, that you have right there, which is exactly what you're looking for, right? You have DK, who's the freak.
Yeah. You
have Tyler Lockett, who's like probably the most, when you talk about under the radar, not talked about excellent wide receivers in the NFL, Tyler Lockett can do it all. deep ball threat, run after the catch threat, slot threat. He can do whatever you want. Jackson Smith-Njigba is the same way. People think, well, you're just a slot guy at Ohio State. No, he's not. Talk to Brian Hartline. Talk to Ryan Day. Watch the tape of Jackson. He can do it all. They believed at Ohio State that he was better than Olave. That he was better than Olave. Now, I'm not going to say he's as good as
Harrison.
No.
Right.
I'm not going to put him in that category.
Right.
This kid can go. Rich, they've got players, man. They've got players, and Seattle is for real. I'm going to jump right back. Well, I never got off. I'm still on that train, and I think that team, for me, I think they win the West.
Louis Riddick.
I think they take it from San Francisco.
Louis Riddick here on the Rich Eisen Show, showing up on the last day of June for sure. All right, now let's choose an AFC team that nobody's talking about, that we should be talking about. And the interesting thing is that we could just identify those teams, and I could give you just a list to choose from because everybody's talking about the AFC. So the AFC teams that fewer people are talking about, you could pretty much putting anybody not named, or you could put the entire AFC South if you want to throw Jacksonville in there. Then you've got the Browns and the Steelers and the Patriots. Pretty much everybody else has been talking about the AFC West, pretty much, unless you think we're overlooking the Broncos, because in the same way that everybody thought Pete was washed, and clearly we learned last year he wasn't. Folks are saying Russ is washed. I'll give you the floor on that one. Louis?
Yeah, you know what? The team I'd be looking at really would be Jacksonville. I mean, look, I'll just mention Denver really quick. Who? Sure. You know Sean Payton as well as anybody. Look, Sean, I think, is one of the great coaches of our time period. When you talk to him for production meetings for television, this guy. Most coaches want to get you in and out of there. They're kind of like, I don't really have time for this, man. I'm trying to prepare my team. It's Saturday, whatever. Sean Payton gives you an absolute PhD education on roster building, player utilization, scheme, strategies, tactics, every single time. I come away from his meetings every single time going, this dude can coach. This is a guy who, if I was a GM and he was a free agent, I'd go, I like his no-nonsense. He's a little gruff, a little edgy, very knowledgeable about all his players. So, yeah, I think Denver is going to be better than what people think they're going to be. Unfortunately, they're just in a meat grinder of the division with the best team in football. But Jacksonville, for sure, is the team. And the South's going to be better overall.
Okay.
But Jacksonville has got dudes, man. And Doug Peterson is a fantastic coach. Their defensive coordinator, Mike Caldwell, is going to be an up-and-coming, under-the-radar head coaching candidate who's going to get some interviews this year. What Calvin Ridley's going to do for Trevor Lawrence and what Trevor's going to do for Calvin Ridley, Calvin's going to burst back onto the scene as being that guy who, before he left and was suspended, I thought was the best route runner in the NFL. Period. He can run any route and absolutely break your ankles, tear your ACLs, dislocate your – this guy is a route-running just genie. And he is going to do wonders for this outside passing game for Jacksonville. Now, it really does – it comes down to, for me, how this offensive line continues to evolve, especially at the tackle position, because now, they're going to have to start a rookie in Anton Harrison at left tackle because of the suspension of Cam Robinson. They're going to have a new right tackle in Walker Little. But the running back, Travis Etienne, is a stud. Tank Bigsby from Auburn, the running back they got in the third, I thought Tank was one of the best running backs in the draft. I mean, in the third round, he's going to be another one of those guys where I look back and go, how the hell did Tank Bigsby last till the third round? He's going to be that kind of guy. This Brenton Strange, who they drafted from Penn State, the tight end, him and Evan Ingram will be as good as a pass-catching duo as there is in the NFL. And I know people are going to go, damn, Louis, you're always so positive on all these. Not everybody can be this good. Look, you know me, man. If I don't like guys, I'll say I don't like guys. I like this team. And they are going to be explosive on offense. And defensively, they've got athletes galore everywhere. It's really going to come down to, look, Mike has got – this is where I think it's going to all come together. Yep. See, Mike is a young up-and-coming defensive coordinator. He's got a bunch of guys on the defensive side of the football that are just fantastic freaking athletes who are young and are still trying to figure out how to play together and make plays in the biggest of moments. I think that's all going to come together because Doug Peterson as a leader and as a person, I couldn't be higher on any coach in the NFL as I am on him as far as a guy who's already won a Super Bowl, but now it's kind of like trying to put his name back in the upper echelon of coaches again. And so I think Jacksonville is you. And here's really what makes it all go. End of story. It makes it all go. We went over to London last year before they played Denver and did their game for ESPN Plus. Talked to Doug extensively about Trevor Lawrence's maturation as a quarterback and how he had to basically almost be like rehabilitated and kind of had to really be infused with confidence after the struggle he had as a rookie, not just on the field, but just with his confidence and with the way he was coached and the way he was supported and not supported and how he was he basically was the adult in the organization his rookie year, which is unfair for him. And how you could see as the season went on, leading up to the way he played in the postseason, how this guy was just making huge strides week after week with his maturation and how he was starting to play like that guy who they said was a can't-miss guy. Year two in Doug's system, what do you think is going to happen to this dude now that he's got the best route runner in the NFL in Calvin Ridley, all these tight ends, a young up-and-coming offensive line that's a little green on the edges, that's got it, but they'll get better. And these running backs, what do you think is going to happen with this football team? They're going to explode.
Yeah, and
absolutely explode.
And I also think, you know, he's been through, as you just pointed out, Trevor Lawrence, Louis Riddick. He's been through the trials in the fire from,
That's right.
from, as you pointed out, being the adult in the room in his first year, which is an outstanding elbow thrown in the direction of Urban Meyer, which you had me at hello on that front. And then two, coming out of that London game, he had a terrible London game, and it was that moment where Lawrence turned his season. Everyone pointed back when they made the playoffs. That was the moment where he's like, I'm not making these mistakes anymore. And then the mistakes happened in the playoffs, and Peterson didn't panic. They wind up winning and going to Kansas City. So they have the momentum. But, you know, if you're going to start talking about coaches, as you mentioned about Sean Payton, who are all-world Hall of Famers in terms of not only their coaching, but also the way they conduct themselves in broadcast meetings, you got Mike Tomlin. And I'm wondering about the Steelers, though, right? We're not talking about them because we all think that last year's quarterback class really wasn't all that compared to this year's, compared to next year's. And Kenny Pickett got all the experience that's necessary going into a year two. And I like that they drafted the kid out of Georgia to protect him, and then Joey Porter Jr. to put on the back end. Their draft was really good, I think. And why can't they kind of surprise and throw their hat in the wild card, if not division ring? What do you got for me there?
Yeah, look, I think the wild card ring for sure. But I mean, you know, it's an absolute, to use the phrase meat grinder again. I mean, there's just so many teams. I mean, you could have you could say all four teams in the East can make the playoffs. I mean, you could say that if you believe that New England, especially if they wind up getting a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, you could say that. So, and in Pittsburgh, I just don't think they're going to win their division. Look, as much as I love Mike, and you know I love Kenny, and I think they are fantastically explosive on the outside at wide receiver. I think the running backs are solid. Look, I think Najee's solid. And I really like Jaylen Warren as the number two. Their offensive line still scares me because it's still a work in progress. It's really been their Achilles heel over the past 2 to 3 seasons. It's been the issue. They can't run the football. They can't protect. Quarterbacks have to get the ball out quick. They can't push the ball down the field. They're always in second and long type of situations because they can't run the football effectively. It's this year. Is Broderick Jones going to make that much of a difference? Is the core of four going to be that much better at right tackle? Is James Daniel going to be that much better at right guard? I don't know. And see, in the AFC, these other teams, man, I mean, Kansas City can run the rock. I mean, Baltimore's going to be able to run the rock. Baltimore's offense is going to be exponentially more explosive this year. Cincinnati, with Kansas City, it's 1 and 1A, and that's Kansas City and Cincy. And Cincy may be the second best team in the NFL, at the very least third best behind Philadelphia. So Pittsburgh's there. I mean, defensively, they're going to play good ball. They just are. Keanu Benton, who they drafted out of Wisconsin, I remember seeing Mike standing down at the Senior Bowl, watching this dude and sitting there and like coaching him individually. And Mike wasn't even a coach in the Senior Bowl, but he was coaching the guy up. I was like, Pittsburgh will draft this dude. There's no question about that. And I mean, Joey Porter, we know the bloodlines. We know how motivated he is, Joey Porter. I mean, there's just so many things going in their favor. Yeah, and Pittsburgh's Pittsburgh. They're just a top-notch organization. It's just that the AFC is just so it's so strong, and that's not hyperbole, man. I mean, these teams are good.
Exactly, and it does appear, Louis, that Dalvin Cook is about to join the conference. So that's my last one for you here.
Yeah.
Which team does Dalvin Cook put, if you will, over the top, or into the mix to be put over the top? Because he has his choices, Miami, Jets, Denver, New England folks are even throwing that out there the last few days, and supposedly he's got contract offers on the table. Which one do you think if he joins Team X, fill in the blank, that he puts over the top, Louis?
I think the team of those that you mentioned that he really can give a real boost to is New England, because Ramondre Stevenson needs a running mate. He does, and those two guys together, I think, would be a hell of a dynamic duo. I like the idea of him going down to Miami and just making them even faster and more explosive. Look, I think for Mike McDaniel down there, he needs to be willing to call running plays and run the football with more frequency in order to get the kind of return on investment from a Dalvin Cook that you really want. On top of the fact that he's already got Mostert, he's already got Jeff Wilson Jr., and they just drafted A-Chain out of A&M. So, I mean, A-Chain's probably the second, third fastest guy in the NFL now. So I don't know if he really puts them over the top. But New England, for sure. The team that I keep saying that I don't understand why they're not in the running back market is Dallas. Look, Tony Pollard's coming off of a significant lower leg injury. Tony Pollard is not a bell cow back. Tony is a rotational guy who needs a running mate. He needs to be with someone else who he can split the load with, so you can keep him fresh, especially coming off of a lower leg injury. You put Dalvin Cook in Dallas with Tony Pollard, now we're really talking. But I don't but there hasn't been a damn peep about it. Maybe. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe Tony Pollard's the Wolverine and everything's good. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, because, Zeke's still out there, and Fournette and Kareem Hunt and, and Saquon's not signing a tender right now, and Josh Jacobs might not even show up for week one. And, and that's the conversation we had Miles Sanders on the other day. And he read the tea leaves like, hell yeah, I'll sign a deal for $6 million per. And said it sucks to be a running back right now. And you read reports that Dallas might give CeeDee Lamb $25 million a year or something like. And I'm just wondering, what's going on? Why won't running backs be valued to the point where, again, Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs are drafted top 12? I don't get it. I don't understand this. What's happening?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. And it's not like I'm telling you something that you don't know.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
I'm just it's this here, and I want to pull this up here real quick so I can. I mean, I can name off the top of my head. But
okay. I like it. If you want, I'll tap dance. I'll tap dance because we didn't get the PowerPoint, so we don't have it to show on the screen.
But no, what I'm saying is when people hear these names, this is going to be why these guys can't get paid. Okay, James Cook, second round. Ramondre Stevenson, fourth round. Breece Hall, second round. J.K. Dobbins, second down. Joe Mixon, second round. Nick Chubb, second round. I mean, so Damian Pierce, second round. Jonathan Taylor, second round. Derrick Henry, second round. Javonte Williams, second round. Isaiah Pacheco, seventh round. Tony Pollard, fourth round. People are saying, well, why pay up when I can just, in the draft, wait for a cheaper alternative that's going to give me the return on investment I need to play at a high level? Or how about I just lower the market so much to the point where you have no other choice? I don't need to pay up. I don't need to take that risk. It doesn't match up for me. It doesn't match up for me as a team builder to pay you something that's way out of my cost structure, especially considering looking at all these other teams that are getting the kind of production they're getting out of these guys. who are second, third, fourth, seventh round. I mean, that's just the way GMs are looking. They just are, and they're going, hey, but you know what? Wide receivers, it's hard. There aren't too many seventh-round wide receivers that are, blowing it up and tearing it up right now. There aren't too many free agent wide receivers, on average that are just tearing it up. We're going to pay up for that position. We just are. It's a passing league. These guys who are freaks are going to get their money. They just are. And even some of the guys who aren't are going to get their money because we're going to throw this football 45, 50 times. It's a quarterback-driven league. They need their weapons on the outside, and we got to cut costs somewhere. And there's places where we can find great value, and that's running back. Like it or not, it doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean we don't need one, but it just means this. We're going to pay these guys. We're not going to pay you because history has shown we can find more of guys like you, much more so than we can at wide receiver or corner or pass rusher. And that's just the way it's going to work out.
Louis.
Look, I love the running back position. We know how important it is, man. We know how important it is. We just did this exercise for the greatest 50 teams in the history of the NFL. And looking back on some of the great teams, going all the way back to the 60s, 50s, late 80s, 90s, all these teams had great running backs. Yeah. So running back's been important, and it's always going to be important. But they're just not going to pay up for it now because recent history is just not on running back side. It's just not, and it's not going to be for the foreseeable future. And they're just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, I know, and because all of those names that you mentioned, they may not get their second contract.
That's right.
Because a new version of them is showing up to make sure they're not getting paid. It's wild. Hey, Louis, look for my call during training camp and then beyond. Thanks again for the time here. Have a great summer.
You got it, man.
You got it. That's Louis Riddick from ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.